Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. When people talk about withdrawals in retirement, inevitably the 4% rule comes up. It's been called the gold standard. In the first year of retirement, you take 4% of your portfolio, adjust for inflation each year, and you should never run out of money in retirement. But here's the problem. In the real world, most retirees end up finishing with far more wealth than they ever started with. That's not necessarily bad, but it does mean that retirees are living more conservatively than they need to. This strategy is called the dynamic spending with small permanent cuts. With this strategy, you're essentially willing to make small permanent cuts to your withdrawal. The trade-off here is that you get to start with a higher rate of withdrawal, and if the market performs poorly, you're willing to make these cuts, but you only have to make them if the market performs poorly. Here's how it works. You start with a slightly higher withdrawal rate, maybe 5 or even 6% instead of 4%. After any negative market year, you permanently reduce your spending by about 3%. Cuts are one way though. Once they're made, you don't restore spending even if markets recover later. This approach allows you to begin more aggressively, but repeated downturns can have a compounding effect on your cuts. Starting at a higher rate of withdrawal could be very attractive. Many retirees tend to spend the most in their first years of retirement, whether that is just an active lifestyle, more expensive activities, or travel, and then spending tends to naturally taper over time. In that case, starting with a higher spend rate and being willing to taper if markets demand that might better align with true retiree spending. But the key trade-off here is discipline. You have to be willing to accept those cuts if the markets underperform, and those cuts are permanent. The idea here is that the permanent cuts slowly recalibrate your lifestyle to a lower level if markets disappoint. Unlike guardrails, where spending can move both up and down, or ratcheting, which only moves up, the permanent cuts model is deliberately conservative. You only ever move down. If you retire into a strong market, you might never have to make a cut and you could enjoy higher withdrawals for your entire retirement. Alternatively, if you retire into a down market, you might be forced to make multiple cuts in a row, and that might feel really uncomfortable. These aren't hard and fast rules for the initial withdrawal. It's not like the 4% rule. You could think of it more like a framework. So you could pick a higher starting withdrawal, one that you're comfortable with. Maybe you go with 4.5, maybe you go with 5, maybe you go with 5.5. Heck, maybe you go with 6% as a starting rate. But the higher you start, the more risk you're introducing, the more aggressive your strategy, and the more likely you're going to have to taper your cuts if the market performs poorly. Likewise, that 3% cut after a down year isn't a hard and fast rule. It's more of a guideline. If you want to make a more aggressive cut or a lesser cut, you can do so if that aligns with your flexibility. But just know there's guesswork here. Compared to the classic 4% rule, this approach carries more risk of depletion. You've got a higher starting draw, you're pulling more out from day one, and this is leaving you with less of a cushion if you run into a poor performing market. It's reactive, not preventive. Cuts happen after the damage has already been done to your portfolio, so you've already locked in some of the losses. And be aware of compounding cuts. Multiple down years or multiple bear markets can send spending downward and put a lot of stress on a portfolio. That said, the intent is to balance things. If the markets are strong, you enjoy more comfort early on. If the markets are weak, you gradually self-correct, which helps avoid catastrophic depletion. The bottom line is this isn't a free pass to spend 5% or 6% forever. You gain more lifestyle in the good times, but you are more vulnerable if the market turns to a poor performance. Michael Kitces and Wade Pfau's back tests show that permanent cuts can increase failure risk if markets start weak, because you're drawing more heavily in the vulnerable early years. But in strong market sequences, you may never trigger a cut. So this means you lock in a higher lifestyle without ever having to pay a penalty, but the performance depends on the sequence of returns you capture. This strategy also comes with a behavioral test. Are you comfortable with your lifestyle ratcheting down if markets are rough? For some retirees, especially those who have a higher percentage of their spending triggered by discretionary, maybe travel, something like that where you can easily make an adjustment, this may feel entirely doable. For others, permanently reducing purchasing power can be emotionally difficult. One more nuance, if inflation is high at the same time markets drop, the pain can be double. Your nominal withdrawal is cut just as the cost of living increases. That's why a 3% cut is a guideline, not a rigid rule. Imagine you retire with $1 million portfolio. In the first year, you draw $50,000, a 5% starting rate. But in year 2, the market drops. Following the rule, you trim your spending by 3%. So your withdrawal falls to about $48,500. If the downturn keeps coming, those cuts compound. After 3 consecutive bad years, your income would be reduced by almost 10%, down to roughly $45,000. Here's the key. If the market rebounds later, your withdrawal doesn't bounce up. Each cut is permanent. Over time, that means your spending gradually ratchets down if the markets underperform. This is good from the standpoint of protecting long-term sustainability, but it never restores your purchasing power. You don't have to be chained to one number forever. Your withdrawal can adapt to the markets and your life. What is your plan? Do you have a withdrawal strategy that you are planning on following as you go into retirement? Share your thoughts in the comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.